войска Украины уйдут из занимаемых ими территорий, вот тогда и прекратятся боевые действия. Не уйдут, мы добьемся этого вооруженным путем. Потому что одно дело, в общем, сказать, что Россия не собирается нападать на Европу, это для нас звучит смешно, правда? Мы никогда не собирались, но если они хотят услышать от нас, ну давайте мы это зафиксируем. Вопросов нет. Просто там есть люди, мне кажется, они не в себе немножко, когда публично, или жулики какие-то, что-то они за это хотят получить, публично своему населению, своим гражданам говорят, что вот Россия готовится к нападению на Европу, и нам нужно немедленно укреплять, значит, свой оборонный потенциал. То ли они обслуживают интересы оборонной промышленности, частных компаний, то ли они на этом фоне как-то стараются поднять свои внутриполитические рейтинги, имея в виду плачевное состояние экономики и социальной сферы. Но трудно сказать, чем они руководствуются, но с нашей точки зрения это полная чушь, это ложь прямая. Но
Vladimir Putin believes his nation is ready for serious peace talks with Ukraine. The Russian leader says Donald Trump's proposal can be used for future agreements, whilst claiming Crimea and the Donbass should be the topic of discussion with American negotiators.
And we can see that American side bears in mind, in some way, our position, which was discussed, encouraged, and after Alaska, we have to sit down and discuss certain concrete issues. We have to translate it into diplomatic language.
Well, Ivor Bennett has more now from Moscow.
And on the one hand, his reaction did sound positive. He said that Russia was ready for serious discussions. He said that the current proposal can be used as a basis for future agreements. But on the other hand, he also made it very clear that several strings remain attached from the Kremlin. Firstly, he said that he wouldn't be signing any agreement with the current Ukrainian leadership because, remember, he sees Volodymyr Zelenskyy as an illegitimate president, and therefore he claims that any deal signed with him would not be legally binding. Secondly, on territory, he described the recognition of Crimea and the Donbass as Russian as a key point in the negotiations. Ukraine got that point removed from the initial draft peace proposal, but it sounds like Putin wants to have it reinserted. And thirdly, regarding Ukraine's and Europe's demands for a ceasefire, he had this warning. Listen to this. Ukrainian troops must withdraw from the territories they hold, and then the fighting will cease. If they don't leave, then we shall achieve this by armed means. And to me, that really shows that despite all his talk of Russia wanting peace, it's clear that Russia only wants peace if it's on its terms. All of its demands sound still undiluted. So when US Envoy Steve Witkoff comes to Moscow next week to seek Russia's approval to this latest peace plan, I think we already know what the answer will be. It will be yes, but.
Joining me live now is former Home Affairs Secretary Mike Pizzullo. Mike, welcome back. We missed you last week. Let's talk about what has happened in those intervening couple of days. There has been a lot of progress between Ukraine and Russia. We had the meeting in Geneva. We've got frustrations boiling over in Washington. But it would seem that Putin is most buoyed here. He feels like he's about to be rewarded for the aggression over the last 4 years. Do you see it that way?
Good morning, Laura. Yes, I do. And were Putin to be rewarded, as you just seen him say in that package that you just played, he's saying, I will get what I want by any means available, including force of arms. Well, if he is rewarded in this way, particularly with territorial concessions to satisfy what he claims is rightfully Russia's legitimate interest here, then frankly there was no point in resolving the Second World War in the way that the world did by saying in future such military aggression or similar displays of military aggression will never be rewarded. What was the point of setting up the United Nations and the charter that underlies the United Nations, which principally says you don't change your borders through force of arms? Well, Vladimir Putin is just saying that's exactly what I'm going to do. If an agreement is struck and the Ukrainians are prevailed upon to accept it, which has Russia rewarded in this way, it'll be a capitulation on a par with the capitulation to Nazi Germany and fascist Italy in the 1930s, where they just kept saying, we're going to keep going, including through force of arms, until we get what we want.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary that it's been almost 4 years. What game is Trump playing here? Because he does, well, what has worked for him in the past is his unpredictability. Ironically, I would say as well, but we've had Witkoff, Rubio, they've all made, I think at times, curious public comments. Where is all this headed? Surely the United States wouldn't stand for rewarding Russia with land because of this aggression.
Well, on the face of it, Laura, it looks as though they might well be motivated to do so. The 28-point plan that emerged in the time since we last spoke was either leaked out of Washington or somehow disclosed out of Washington, and central to the 28-point plan, since been modified after the discussions in Geneva, was effectively the centrepiece of which was to accept Russia's claim over that territory. Now, there are other issues about the size of the Ukrainian armed forces and whether or not they could, down the track, join NATO, but the core of it was giving Putin what he wanted in terms of territory. Now, the plan's been modified, it's been walked back, the Europeans have become involved. To your question about what the United States is trying to achieve, or perhaps personally the President is trying to achieve, I think if we take a glass half full view first, I think the Americans are very concerned about an ongoing security commitment in Europe, which they've been involved in providing ever since the Second World War, the end of that war that we just spoke about, and it's very costly. So I think from one point of view, the American administration and a number of presidents have gone down this path, but Trump has gone down it the furthest, is really saying, Europe, you need to secure your own borders. And that then opens this question, Laura. What has Europe done? In the 4 years they've had, it's going to be 4 years come February, they should have built, if not the largest land force in the world, close to it. Their GDP is 10 times the size of Russia. They've got a larger population. By now, European leaders should have mobilised a very large conventional force, and France and the UK should have backstopped that with a significant improvement and enhancement of their nuclear capability. None of that has been done. So to some extent, the Americans have got some justice on their side in saying, if Europe's not going to be prepared to make sacrifices, why should we? But I think there's more to it than that. I think the overriding principle should be that territorial conquest through force of arms should be unacceptable, as it is under the UN Charter.
Yeah, the European point is a valid one, and you can sense Donald Trump's frustration. I mean,
yes,
we heard the NATO boss call him daddy. I guess that's what they've achieved. That's the most memorable thing to me over the last couple of years. But what has been pointed out in recent days is still Europe's reliance on Russian oil. That's got to be a critical part of this, doesn't it?
European reliance on Russian energy, both oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
A lack of a conventional force to deter further Russian incursions, whether further into Ukraine or potentially against other European members of NATO, and an inability, because of the mismatch in the relative nuclear arsenal between what Russia's got and what France and the UK have got, so leaving aside the American nuclear deterrent, all of those factors weaken Europe. They've had 4 years to get their house in order, and collectively, but also individually, they've been so consumed by domestic politics, by, if you like, the aspirations of their citizens to avoid sacrifices that are necessary in such a circumstance. When you've got a powerful, aggressive military power, a great power on your borders like Russia, you either turn your area into a fortress, or you say, look, one day we're going to take a risk here, but one day we might have to capitulate. This is as much about European weakness as it is about Russian aggression.